The first floorboard creaked at 9:37 p.m. Not the usual lazy groan of a 100-year-old farmhouse, but a precise, deliberate snap, like someone shifting their weight just to be heard. Rachel Carter froze mid-sentence on her work call, her cursor hovering over the end meeting button through her laptop camera. Her colleagues laughed about weekend plans, bathed in apartment light and digital noise, unaware that her world had just tilted. She muted herself and stood, listening. Thunder rolled outside, the rain intensified against the windows. But beneath it, Rachel swore she heard it again, closer this time. Rachel knew isolation. She'd chosen it. The 19th century farmhouse outside Bakersville had felt like peace when she bought it. Big skies, no neighbors, a clean start after the divorce. She'd even leaned into it. YouTube channel, podcast, survival content. She taught people how to secure their homes, how to prepare for the worst. Steel doors, reinforced windows, motion sensors, 12 cameras. A true crime fan's dream. But now, as the storm swallowed her walls and her breath fogged in the kitchen light, everything she'd built felt staged. False confidence wrapped in drywall naivete. The microwave beeped behind her. She'd barely touched her leftovers. Then came the second creak. Closer, just past the pantry. She turned fast. Spatula clutched like a blade. Nothing. Only the porch light flickering, then dying. Her first escape attempt came at 10:08 p.m. She tried the back door. Triple locked. Steel reinforced. But it wouldn't move. Not jammed. Wedged. She squinted closer. A thin, splintered shim pressed into the door frame. Undetectable unless you were trying to leave. Her stomach turned. She ran for the car. Her Jeep sat onto the carport, glistening wet, but the rear tire was sagging, neatly slit along the sidewall. Not a chaotic slash. A practiced, surgical cut. No tool, no tracks. Just swept mud. She fumbled for her phone, dialing 911. Nothing. The screen was on, but the battery bar pulsed red despite hours on the charger. She yanked the cord. The port was filled with hardened epoxy. Her phone hadn't died. It had been killed. At 10:26 p.m., she opened the freezer to grab ice for her wine. There, tucked between the trays, was a note. Rule 1, no exits. Rule 2, no help. Rule 3, make it fun. The handwriting was neat, familiar. It matched the anonymous birthday card she'd laughed about in her last video. From your #1 fan. She thought it was cute at the time. She ran through the list. The fireplace poker, gone. The landline, cord severed at the wall. The garage tools, locked tight with a padlock she didn't own. Every strategy she'd shared in episode #107, securing your sanctuary, had been dismantled. By 10:49 p.m., the cameras rebooted. 12 feeds flashed across the monitor. In each one, a hooded figure stood dead center. Same height, same stance. Each lifted a hand. Just one slow wave. Then all 12 feeds cut to static. At 11:03 p.m., her laptop screen flickered. She hadn't touched it. A new window opened. Her password field bypassed itself. The speakers crackled. Then a voice. Digital, male, synthetic. You didn't really think the Glock safe under the bed would be enough, did you, Rachel? A video began to play. Security footage, clips from her own system. Her making coffee. Her scrolling late at night. Her forgetting to on the alarm. Every moment cataloged. Time-stamped. All set to a cheerful piano version of Every Breath You Take. She slammed the laptop shut. The voice still echoed through the speakers. Midnight. She followed a trail of blood droplets into the hallway. She didn't know if they were hers or his. She clutched a broken wine bottle, its jagged edge trembling in her grip, down the stairs. To the basement. The podcast studio was dim. Soundproofed walls swallowing even her heartbeat. Someone stood at her mic. Silhouetted. He turned. Not a stranger. Mitch, her old college writing partner, the one she ghosted after he pitched her a script called The Lockdown Protocol. The plot: a woman trapped in her own home by her #1 fan. "You said it was unrealistic," Mitch whispered, adjusting the GoPro strap to his chest. "Let's test that." Rachel survived. Barely. Neighbors reported screams. Police found Mitch unconscious, face shattered by a swing from her wine bottle. They found his manifesto, 78 pages, schedules, shopping habits, a list of her security flaws, footnotes from her own videos. But one thing didn't add up. Mitch's car was parked 200 miles away the night of the attack. The epoxy? It needed 12 hours to cure. The blood in the hallway? Type A negative. Mitch had O positive. Someone else had started the lockdown. Someone with access. Someone she never noticed. Rain hammers Rachel's new apartment windows as she records her first comeback video. Her voice is steadier now. The camera captures a flash of motion, barely half a frame. Behind the curtain, a figure, a raised hand, a slow, mocking wave. Moments later, a comment appears on her Patreon feed from a burner account. Rule of 4. Always leave them wanting more. Her video goes viral. But Rachel doesn't celebrate because she knows the protocol isn't finished. The blue light of my laptop cast eerie shadows across my dark home office. Midnight approached as I rubbed my tired eyes, the software deadline looming over me like a guillotine. The Victorian house I'd inherited from my parents last year was unnervingly quiet, except for the soft electronic hum of my computer. My phone vibrated against the wooden desk, the harsh, rattling sound breaking the silence. Diane's contact photo illuminated the screen. Odd. My wife rarely called this late, especially when visiting her sister in Chicago. "Hey, everything okay?" I answered. The video connected to darkness, then a flashlight beam illuminated Diane's face. Mascara ran down her cheeks in black streams. A partially torn strip of duct tape hung from her mouth. "Marcus, help me." Her voice broke. "They're going to kill me." My stomach dropped. "Diane, where are you?" I stood so fast. My chair slammed against the wall. A digitally distorted voice cut in from off-camera. "Marcus Reed, we have your wife." The voice had an unnerving cadence, methodical, with strange pauses between words. "Transfer $50,000 in Bitcoin to this address." The camera panned to show a QR code with a strange omega symbol in its center. 30 minutes. Call police, she dies. I don't have that kind of money, liquid. I need more. Diane screamed as someone yanked her hair. "Please, Marcus." 30 minutes, the voice repeated. The echo demands balance. The call ended abruptly. I frantically tried calling back. No answer. My banking app showed only $12,000 across all accounts. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Something felt wrong. The lighting in the video had been theatrical. And those earrings, Diane never wore large hoops while traveling. She always said they got in the way when she slept on planes. Hadn't her sister posted on Instagram just hours ago? A dinner selfie with Diane? The neighborhood alert system on my phone pinged. The neighborhood alert system on my phone pinged. I'd been ignoring these notifications all week. Reports of suspicious vehicles and strange network outages throughout the area. Now, it suddenly seemed important. I scrolled through her sister's Instagram. There it was, posted at 9:16 p.m. Definitely Diane. In the blue blouse she'd packed. Deepfakes. The subject of an article I'd written last year. Technology now sophisticated enough to fool even family members. The living room smart bulb flashed inexplicably, once, twice, before returning to normal. My security system had been glitching all week. I'd meant to fix it tomorrow. A distinct thud echoed from somewhere in the house, followed by a slow scraping sound against hardwood. Then a whisper so faint I barely caught it. "Marcus," it was Diane's voice, from inside the house. The call was a distraction. Someone was already here. With Diane. But Chicago, the Instagram post, I eased open my desk drawer and grabbed the letter opener. The metal felt cold and inadequate as I killed the lights and crept toward the door. The hallway stretched before me, moonlight filtering through the window at the far end. My phone lit up again. Diane calling. I silenced it. A creak from above. The attic. I tested each stair carefully, avoiding the ones that groaned. The attic door stood slightly ajar. I pressed my ear against it. Muffled breathing. A whimper. Inside, moonlight cut angular patterns through dormer windows. I rounded a tall wardrobe and froze. Diana sat bound to a chair, duct tape across her mouth. Behind her stood a man in a black ski mask with that same Omega symbol stitched in red. One hand held a knife to her throat, the other pressed a finger to his lips. A second figure emerged from the shadows, wearing identical marked gear. The gloved hand held a stun gun. Phone. The voice used the same unnatural cadence from the call. The echo requires it. I raised my hand slowly. Take it. Just don't hurt her. As I reached for my pocket, my phone lit up with another call from Diane. The knife wielder hesitated, confused. I lunged, driving the letter opener into his arm. He screamed. The knife clattered to the floor. He screamed. The knife clattered to the floor. The second attacker rushed me, stun gun crackling. I ducked, shoulder into midsection. We crashed into boxes. Glass shattered. The stun gun connected with my shoulder. Pain, spasms, temporary paralysis. The first intruder recovered, blood darkening his sleeve. Enough, he snarled. She dies. Who's calling my phone? I gasped. That split-second confusion was enough. I kicked out, connected with a knee, rolled toward the fallen stun gun. Whoa. Electrical crackle. Burning fabric. Scream. Body crashing through glass. When my vision cleared, one intruder lay unconscious. The other had fled, leaving blood droplets down the stairs. I freed Diane. They came through the back door. She gasped. I never went to Chicago. We canceled yesterday, remember? They knew everything, Marcus. Our schedules. When I'd be alone. My phone, I said, finding it beneath a toppled box. As I dialed 911, it lit up with a final call from Diane. I answered on speaker. You failed the test, Marcus read. That same mechanical cadence. The echo is disappointed. Who are you? A soft laugh. Just phase one. The balancing begins now. Car doors slammed in synchronized rhythm up and down our street. Through the broken window, dark figures moved across neighboring lawns, each wearing masks with that same red Omega symbol. My neighborhood alert system pinged again. Multiple break-ins reported simultaneously across 12 blocks. Distant sirens wailed. Too few, too far. We need to barricade the doors, I whispered to Diane. The echo is coming back. The echo is coming back, and they're not alone. I hadn't realized then what I know now. The deep fake wasn't just a scam. It was coordinated chaos. A test run. The echo, as they call themselves, didn't want my money. They wanted to prove how efficiently they could paralyze an entire neighborhood with synchronized fear. Sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't supernatural creatures. They're the ones who turn your digital footprint, your technology, and your own home into weapons. And sometimes, the call coming from inside the house is just the beginning of a much larger. All right, settle in. Let me tell you about Sarah. This one still makes the hairs on my arm stand up, and it didn't happen to me. It's the kind of quiet dread that sinks into your bones. The kind born from the mundane twisting into something monstrous. Think less jump scares, more the chilling certainty that the monster is in under the bed, but might have just tucked you in. The faint scent of stale coffee and unpacking boxes hung in the air of Sarah's narrow townhouse. Rain lashed against the bay window, overlooking the quiet tree-lined street. The kind of street people move to for peace. She'd been binge-watching that true crime docuseries, the one about the Shutter killer. They never caught him. His signature, leaving intimate photographic records of his victim's final hours. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, unrelated to the draft snaking under the front door. That's when she saw it, tucked halfway under the door, stark white against the dark wood floor. A Polaroid photograph. Blank. Just the empty, milky rectangle waiting for an image to bloom. Probably some kid's prank, she thought, tossing it onto the cluttered entryway table. But a seed of unease, planted by the documentary, had taken root. The house suddenly felt too quiet, the rain too loud. Maybe 20 minutes later, brewing more coffee, she nearly tripped over another one. Same spot, same blank white square. Annoyance warred with a tremor of something colder. She picked it up, her thumb smudging the white border. This wasn't funny. She held it, impatiently willing an image to appear. The silence stretched. Slowly, ghostly shapes began to resolve. Gray tones sharpened. Her breath hitched. It was her living room. Empty, taken from the hallway entrance, low angle, capturing the worn armchair she'd just been sitting in, the faint indentation still visible on the cushion. The photo felt recent, too recent. A floorboard creaked upstairs, her heart hammered against her ribs. Hello. Her voice was a thin, reedy thing swallowed by the house. Silence answered. She rushed to the front door, peering through the peephole, nothing but rain-slicked pavement and the skeletal branches of the oak across the street. She double-checked the deadbolt, locked tight. Backing away, her eyes scanned the entryway table. The first Polaroid, an image had surfaced there too, just the hallway floor, the scuffed baseboard, the edge of the runner rug. Taken from outside the front door, looking in, panic began its icy crawl up her throat. The shutter killer, the documentary voiceover echoed in her head. He documented his approach, creating a terrifying real-time countdown for his victims, though they rarely knew it until it was too late. Another 30 minutes crawled by, each second thick with dread. Every creak of the old house, every gust of wind rattling the windows, sounded like footsteps, like intrusion. She couldn't stay still. She checked the back door, the windows, peering into the dim backyard. Nothing. Then, returning to the foyer, she saw it. The third Polaroid. This one wasn't blank. The image was already partially formed, dark shapes swirling into focus. Her stomach plummeted. The upstairs hallway, her hallway, leading to her bedroom, taken from the top of the stairs looking down. Empty. Waiting. She scrambled up the stairs, clumsy in her haste, checking the bathroom. The spare room. Empty. 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 Her own bedroom door was slightly ajar. Just as she'd left it, she slammed it shut, jamming her desk chair under the knob, heart pounding like a drum solo. She fumbled for her phone, dialing her friend. Emily. Voicemail. Of course. Who could she call? The police. Someone sliding pictures under my door. They'd think she was crazy. A faint click. Was that downstairs? Or just the house settling? Her ears strained, catching only the drumming rain and the frantic thudding in her chest. She backed away from the door, pressing herself against the far wall, eyes wide in the dim light filtering through the window. Then she saw it. White plastic, sliding silently across the worn wooden floorboards. Another Polaroid, nudged under her bedroom door. Her breath caught, trapped in her lungs. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It lay there, face down, waiting. Time ceased to have meaning. It could have been seconds or hours before she forced her trembling legs to move. Her hand shook violently as she reached down, fingers brushing the cool plastic. She flipped it over. The milky white stared back. She sank to the floor, back against the wall, clutching the photo, watching, waiting for the horror to resolve itself. The seconds dripped by like leaking dread. Slowly, agonizingly, the image began to ghost in. Dark hair fanned out on a pillow, familiar patinette blanket. Her face, slack in sleep, bathed in the soft, pre-dawn light that must have crept in hours ago. It was her, asleep, in this bed. The angle was wrong. It wasn't taken from the doorway. It was taken from the foot of the bed. Someone had been in the room with her, standing there, watching her, documenting her. Hours ago, a cold sweat broke out over her entire body. Her gaze shot from the horrifying intimacy of the photograph to the door. The cheap metal doorknob, slowly, silently, it began to turn. It was a cold, rainy November evening when 16-year-old Sarah Miller settled onto the living room sofa, the comforting murmur of a true crime documentary in the background. Her parents were celebrating their anniversary in Boston, leaving the house unusually quiet. Outside, wind howled softly, tapping tree branches against the glass like skeletal fingers. Halfway through the program, her phone vibrated sharply, rattling against the coffee table. Unknown number. A chill ran down her spine. Reluctantly, Sarah picked up. "Hello?" Static hissed through the receiver, a slow, deliberate breathing audible beneath. A low, gravelly voice whispered, "Sarah, are you alone?" Her throat tightened. "Who is this?" The line went silent before the caller chuckled softly, then disconnected. Heart pounding. Sarah checked every lock downstairs. As she passed the couch, her foot brushed something hard. She glanced down. A ballpoint pen, cheap plastic, scratched and worn. Curious, she picked it up. Her name was meticulously carved into the side, the handwriting strangely familiar, disturbingly similar to her own. A lump formed in her throat. She had never seen this pen before. Suddenly, 3 firm knocks echoed through the house, each one like a heavy heartbeat. Swallowing back fear, she crept to the door and peered through the peephole. Outside, standing motionless beneath the flickering porch light, was a figure cloaked in a dark hood, head cocked slightly to one side. "Hello?" His voice called out gently through the wood. "My car broke down. Can I use your phone? Can I use your phone?" Zara's voice shook. "I'll call someone for you." "No," the stranger answered softly, almost amused. "I think I'd rather come in, Sarah." "Are you sure your parents aren't home?" she gasped sharply, stumbling backward. How did he know her name? Slowly, deliberately, the man's fingernails dragged down the wooden door, creating a sickening scraping sound. Sarah turned and bolted upstairs, slamming her bedroom door shut. Trembling fingers dialed 911 as her breathing quickened. "Please hurry," she whispered, panic squeezing her throat. "There's someone here. He knows me." "Stay hidden," the dispatcher instructed. "Officers are en route." Heavy footsteps sounded downstairs. Slow, steady, ascending the stairs, each creak amplified by silence. Sarah backed against the far wall, eyes wide, as the intruder stopped inches from her bedroom door. "Zara," he whispered sweetly, twisting the knob gently, patiently. "Don't make this difficult." Then came a violent thud. Something heavy slammed into the door, wood splintering slightly. Sarah choked back tears, frozen in terror. Another thud, louder, harder. The frame buckled, held together only by inches of fractured wood. Just then, red and blue lights flashed through her window, police sirens screaming through the night. The intruder paused, footsteps thundered away, fading swiftly into the darkness. Sarah remained paralyzed until uniformed officers burst inside, flashlights cutting sharp beams across the shadows. "Did you get him?" she asked, shaking uncontrollably. The officers exchanged tense glances. "There's nobody out there." "But he was here," Sarah shouted, panic rising. She led them downstairs. Outside her door lay a single scrap of paper pinned beneath a stone, mud smearing its edges. Officers carefully unfolded it, revealing neat handwriting scrawled hastily. "I was closer than you thought." A dirty handprint smeared the bottom corner. Still fresh, still damp. Her stomach twisted violently. Days passed without answers. The police found no useful evidence, except footprints beneath Sarah's window. Her parents installed new locks, cameras, alarms. But none of it erased the lingering dread. Exactly 1 week later, an anonymous package appeared. Hands trembling, Sarah opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Hair, sleeping peacefully, taken through her bedroom window. On the back, written neatly with chilling familiarity. Next time, open the door, Sarah. Detectives traced the package, finding only dead ends. Sarah's world unraveled further. Sleep became a cruel joke, the quiet of her house now suffocating. Each creak of floorboards, each rustle of leaves became his approach. Her stalker returning to finish what he'd started. Months crawled into years, yet Sarah's terror never diminished. Therapy, relocation. Nothing freed her from the persistent unease, the relentless paranoia. She began triple-checking locks, peering anxiously through curtains, flinching at every unknown sound. Then, on a bitter January evening, a sudden knock shattered the silence. The sound sent icy adrenaline surging through her veins. Approaching cautiously, heart hammering in her chest, she peered through the peephole. No one there, but taped carefully to the door was another note, fluttering softly in the wind. With trembling fingers, she peeled it free, eyes widening at the neatly printed words. Did you ever find my pen, Sarah? Check under your sofa again. Nausea twisted in her gut. How could he know about the pen, unless he'd placed it there himself, inside her home, so close she could have touched him? Shaking, she rushed inside, tipped the couch over violently. Beneath, dozens of identical pens spilled out, each carved meticulously with her name. Among them was something even worse, a Polaroid photo. In the image, a dark figure sat on her couch, holding one of the pens, calmly carving her name. The TV was on in the background. The crime documentary she'd watched that night, frozen on screen. The timestamp read precisely when she'd received that first horrifying call. With dawning horror, she realized he'd never truly left. Footsteps echoed softly behind her. Slow, steady, approaching. She spun around, clutching the photograph, eyes wild with terror. And there he stood, hood pulled back, revealing an all too familiar face. A neighbor she'd seen every morning watering his lawn, waving politely, smiling warmly. Sarah, he said, voice low and calm, stepping toward her. I told you. I was always closer than you thought. The house breathed its familiar creaks, but tonight, something felt different. Jake Reynolds clutched his phone, thumb hovering over his mom's contact. 13, and home alone for the first time. A milestone that felt more terrifying than exciting. His mom's night shift at Mercy General Hospital wouldn't end until 6 a.m. His sister was away at college in Michigan. A soft thump from above. Directly overhead, he muted his video game, listening. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across the attic. Jake's fingers trembled as he dialed his mother's number. The call connected, then immediately dropped. No signal. Another step, heavier, like work boots on wooden planks. He tried again. Nothing. The house phone sat nearby. As he reached for it, the line went dead with a sharp click. Another thump. Closer now. Jake grabbed the cordless phone. Dead. The battery light wasn't even blinking. Something was wrong. The footsteps grew louder. A scraping sound, like metal against wood, echoed through the ceiling. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He remembered the emergency protocol his mom had drilled into him. Stay calm. Call 911. Find a safe space. But the phone was dead. The cell had no signal. Another sound, a soft rustling, like someone shifting weight in the darkness above. Jake's eyes darted to the front door. Too far, to the back door. Also exposed. The attic access panel in the hallway ceiling looked different. A thin line of darkness showed around its edges. It wasn't fully closed. A police report would later reveal Robert Garrett's chilling history. 3 previous incidents in neighboring counties. Families discovered he'd been living in hidden spaces of their homes for months, sometimes years, before being detected. The Oakwood County Sheriff's report detailed his method: carefully selected homes with predictable occupants, single parents, shift workers, families with complex schedules. Jake heard something else now, a soft whisper, almost like someone talking to themselves. Not yet. Not yet. His hand found the baseball bat by the TV stand, a gift from his dad before he left. The aluminum felt cold against his sweaty palm. The attic ladder began to lower. Slowly, deliberately, Jake backed into the kitchen. No clear escape route. The back door required crossing an open space. The front door was equally exposed. A head emerged, then shoulders. A tall, thin figure wearing dark clothing. Robert Garrett's eyes locked with Jake's. No surprise, no emotion. Just cold calculation. "You're not supposed to be here," Garrett whispered. Jake's hand searched behind him. Kitchen counter. Knife block. The intruder took a step forward. Another. A moment of absolute silence. The kind of quiet that happens just before something terrible happens. Jake's fingers closed around a knife handle. The next 60 seconds would change everything. Forensic details. Discovered later hidden room. 6'4" feet, constructed within wall cavities, entry points carefully engineered through electrical conduit surveillance materials. 247 photographs of the Reynolds family previous undetected residencies. Confirmed in 3 separate counties. Detective Sarah Martinez would later describe it as the most meticulously planned home invasion she'd ever encountered. Not a break-in, an infiltration, a predator who didn't just enter homes. He became part of them, watching, waiting, living in the spaces between walls, between breaths, always watching. The most terrifying monsters don't need to break down doors. They're patient enough to create their own entrances, slowly, methodically, while everyone else sleeps. I still remember the sound. That's what haunts me most. Not the nightmares or the therapy sessions, or even the way my parents look at me now. It's the sound. The slow, deliberate grinding of the wooden ladder against its frame. Like an old door opening in a house that should be empty. The sound that told me I wasn't alone. My name is Ethan Parker. I was 10 years old when it happened. Old enough to stay home alone for short periods. Young enough to still fear the dark corners of my family's suburban Minneapolis home. Mom had gone to pick up my sister from soccer practice. Dad was working late as usual. The frozen pizza in the microwave had 3 minutes left. Everything was normal until it wasn't. The first sound came from above. A heavy object being placed on the floor, the impact reverberating through the ceiling. I muted the TV, my finger hovering over the remote button. The house fell into a deep silence. Then it came again. The distinct sound of something whitey dropping onto the attic floor. Definitely from upstairs. Hello? My voice sounded small in the empty house. Winter had come early to Minnesota that year. Outside, bare tree branches scratched against the windows like skeletal fingers. Wind howled through the eaves. But what I heard wasn't the wind. From above came the unmistakable noise of something heavy being dragged across wooden floorboards. The friction creating a drawn-out groaning sound that sent chills down my spine. I called Mom's cell. No answer. She was probably driving. The microwave beeped, making me jump. The pizza could wait. I needed to check upstairs. Our house was old, built in the 1930s with creaking floorboards and doors that sometimes opened on their own. Mom always said houses settle. They make noises. It's normal. But the heavy footsteps overhead weren't normal. I gripped the baseball bat from the hall closet as I approached the stairs. Each step creaked beneath my weight, announcing my presence to whoever, or whatever, was above. The second floor hallway was darker than usual. The only illumination came from my bedroom nightlight, casting long shadows across the faded wallpaper. At the end of the hall hung the attic cord, a white string dangling from the ceiling. Except the cord wasn't dangling anymore. The attic ladder was fully extended, reaching down to the hallway floor. Its wooden rung stretched upward into darkness. I froze. No one had been in the attic for months. Dad stored Christmas decorations up there in January, and no one had reason to go up since. Yet the ladder was down. And something was moving up there. I should have run. Called 911, gone to a neighbor's house. Later, the police officers would ask me why I didn't. I still don't have a good answer. Hello. I called again, louder this time. The bat trembled in my hands. Silence answered. Complete stillness from above. Then something new. A smell. An unfamiliar odor drifting down from the attic opening. Body odor. Unwashed clothes. Something else I couldn't identify at 10 years old, but would later learn was the metallic scent of fresh blood. I took one step toward the ladder. Then another. The house creaked around me, as if warning me back. From somewhere upstairs came a different sound, the distinctive noise of metal striking metal, like a knife blade tapping against a hard surface. I stopped at the foot of the ladder, looking up into blackness. The attic light switch was at the top of the ladder. To see anything, I'd have to climb up and reach blindly into the dark. I couldn't do it. Fear cemented my feet to the floor. Fear cemented my feet to the floor. That's when I saw it. A single potato chip wrapper floating down from the darkness above. It drifted lazily through the air, landing at my feet. Sour cream and onion, my favorite flavor, from the unopened bag in the pantry. Someone had been eating our food. Someone was living in our attic. As the realization hit me, a shadow shifted at the top of the ladder. Just a slight movement, but enough to know. Someone was watching me from the darkness. I ran down the stairs, across the living room, fumbling with the front door locks. My hands shook so badly, I could barely turn the deadbolt. Behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of weight on the attic ladder. Each wooden rung groaned under pressure as someone descended. Step by deliberate step, the door finally opened. Cold November air hit my face as I burst outside. Still clutching the baseball bat, I ran straight to our neighbor, Mrs. Loomis's house, pounding on her door until her startled face appeared. The police arrived 12 minutes later. By then, Mom had returned, holding me tight while I sobbed out my story. Probably just the wind, one officer said, though his hand rested on his holstered weapon as they entered our house. 20 minutes passed. Mom and I waited in Mrs. Loomis's kitchen, drinking hot chocolate that tasted like nothing. When the officers returned, their faces had changed. No more reassuring smiles. They spoke quietly to Mom, throwing occasional glances my way. Later I would learn what they found. A nest-like arrangement of blankets in the far corner of our attic. 7 empty food wrappers. A plastic bottle filled with urine. A hunting knife with a 7-inch blade. And a Polaroid camera containing pictures of me sleeping in my bedroom. But that wasn't all. They found a worn, leather-bound notebook. Inside were detailed notes about our family. When Dad left for work. When Mom took my sister to soccer. Which days I stayed home alone. Even a floor plan of our house, with X marks showing the spots where the floorboards didn't creak. Most disturbing of all was a page titled, "The Boy with Observations About Me." What games I played, what cereal I ate, what time I went to bed. The man they were looking for was Darren Meeks, age 34, but he wasn't a stranger. Mom recognized his name immediately. 6 months earlier, our furnace had broken during the first cold snap of fall. Dad called an emergency repair service. Meeks was the technician who spent 4 hours in our home, fixing the heating system. He'd been in our house before. He'd seen me before. And according to the detective who interviewed my parents, He'd likely been planning this since that day. The business card they found in his belongings had my name written on the back, circled 3 times in red ink. They didn't catch him that night, or the next day. In fact, they didn't catch him until 2 years later, when another family 2 states over called the police about strange noises in their attic. By then, Meeks had lived in 7 different homes, always choosing houses with young boys around my age, always houses where he'd previously worked as a repairman or delivery person. Always watching, taking pictures, waiting. The police never told me what he planned to do. Some things even adults try to protect children from knowing. I'm 16 now. We moved away from that house years ago. I still see Dr. Hannigan every Tuesday for therapy. I still sleep with my bedroom door locked and a baseball bat under my bed. And I still wake up sometimes, heart racing, convinced I hear that sound again. The slow creak of weight shifting on floorboards above my ceiling. The sound that tells me someone is watching, waiting, biding their time. Because the most terrifying monsters aren't the ones from stories. They're the ones that hide in plain sight. The ones that study your routines, learn your habits, and make themselves at home in the empty spaces of your life, the ones you've already invited in. The first time I heard the voice in the vent, I thought it was the wind. The second time, it knew my name. The rain in suburban Ohio had a particular quality that fall. A relentless drumming insistence against the windows that amplified every creak and groan of the old Victorian house. I was 12, home alone for what felt like the 100th time, while my parents worked late shifts at the hospital. The air smelled damp, like overturned earth and old dust. Mom had left a plate of barely touched spaghetti on the kitchen counter, and the TV hummed a low, static-filled lullaby. My room was at the back of the house, overlooking Mr. Harding's perfectly manicured lawn. Mr. Harding, a man who always seemed to be watching from behind his curtains, a perpetually shadowed figure tending his roses. He was quiet, almost unsettlingly so. The kind of quiet that felt deliberate. I'd been reading a dog-eared copy of Frankenstein. Ironic, considering the growing dread tightening in my chest. Suddenly, a sound, not a bang, not a crash, a whisper. It wasn't discernible words, just a low, rustling murmur coming from the vent above my bed. I froze, the book slipping from my numb fingers. The vents were old metal grates bolted into the ceiling, part of the house antique heating system. They'd always been a source of mystery. I'd occasionally drop toys in there, listening to them clatter through the ducts. But I'd never heard anything come from them. The spaghetti sat forgotten, cooling on the counter. The TV's light flickered, casting long, distorted shadows across the room. I held my breath, straining to hear over the drumming rain. It came again, clearer this time, a sibilant, breathy sound. Come here. My blood turned to ice. I scrambled out of bed, heart hammering against my ribs. The voice, if it was a voice, seemed to be coming directly from the vent above my head. I pressed my ear to the cold metal grate. The sound intensified, a low, insistent murmur. Come here, Elias. Play with me. I ran, a clumsy, terrified sprint down the hallway towards the living room phone. My fingers fumbled with the buttons, dialing 911. The dispatcher's calm voice was a jarring contrast to the frantic pounding in my ears. 911. What's your emergency? There's someone in the vents, I stammered, desperately hoping it was a prank, a dream, anything but what it felt like. They're talking to me, saying, come here. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with agonizing slowness. I kept my ears glued to the vent. The whispers subsided, replaced by an unsettling silence. Too quiet. The rain seemed to amplify the stillness. 2 officers arrived, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and weary skepticism. Officer Miller, a kind-faced man with tired eyes, took my statement, while Officer Reynolds, younger and with a harder edge, began a methodical search of the house. "Let's check this vent out, son," Officer Miller said gently, gesturing towards my room. Reynolds pried the vent cover open with his crowbar. Dust billowed out, carrying with it the stale scent of old insulation and something else. Something subtly floral, like decaying roses. The vent was empty. "Nothing here, kid," Reynolds said, his voice flat. Probably just the wind playing tricks, but I knew it wasn't the wind. I heard it. I insisted, describing the voice, desperate to be believed. Officer Miller, to his credit, listened patiently. Then something Officer Reynolds noticed. "Hold on," he muttered, crouching down to examine the foundation of the house near the vent. "This is odd." He pointed to a suspiciously fresh patch of disturbed earth, partially obscured by overgrown ivy. Embedded deeper than it should have been, almost hidden, was a tiny silver trowel. Clearly not Mr. Harding's gardening tools, which were all rusted and worn. It looked brand new. Following the slender opening, a glimmer of light emerged as Reynolds used his flashlight. It widened, revealing a crudely dug tunnel, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. The tunnel led directly under the foundation, disappearing into the earth toward Mr. Harding's property. The officers followed the tunnel, wading through damp soil and spiderwebs. It opened into a small, unfinished basement within Harding's house, a space I never knew existed. The air here was thick with the same decaying rose scent, and sitting amongst the meticulously arranged dolls was a single, pristine porcelain ballerina. A brand new addition, conspicuously out of place with the older, dustier toys. No one had mentioned seeing a ballerina before. Mr. Harding was nowhere to be found. The police found Mr. Harding a week later, in a nursing home upstate, suffering from advanced dementia. He'd been wandering for years, believing he was a toy maker creating a world for lonely children. He claimed he'd built the tunnel to bring Elias closer, to be his friend. The case was officially closed. Delusional behavior. But the whispers never truly stopped. Years later, after my parents had passed, I returned to the house to clear it out. As I stood in my old bedroom, a faint scent of roses wafted through the air. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I looked up at the vent. A tiny scratch mark, identical to the one I remembered from my childhood, now encircled a different bolt, and barely audible, just beneath the thrum of the rain. I heard it again. "We miss you, Elias." But this time, the voice wasn't alone, faintly layered beneath it. I heard another, much younger voice, a child's whispered plea. "He wants to play." With me, it carried on the wind, a chilling echo that sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over me. The game, it seemed, had never truly ended.